The Vietnam War, a conflict that spanned nearly 2 decades from 1955 to 1975 and left an indelible mark on the world. A conflict etched in the memory of millions. It was a war that not only affected the soldiers on the front lines but also the civilians who were caught in the crossfire. A war that tore a nation apart. Families were displaced, villages were destroyed, and countless lives were lost. The scars of this war are still visible in the landscapes and in the hearts of the people. It was a clash of ideologies, a struggle for independence, and a tragic loss of life on a massive scale. The Cold War backdrop intensified the conflict, making it a proxy battleground for superpowers. From the rice paddies to the bustling cities, the war left an indelible mark on Vietnam and the world. The daily lives of ordinary people were disrupted, and the country's infrastructure was heavily damaged. This wasn't just a battle fought with guns and bombs, it was a war of attrition, where both sides suffered heavy casualties and the psychological toll was immense. It was a war of propaganda, a fight for hearts and minds. Both sides used media and information to sway public opinion and gain support for their cause. The images of the war helicopters in the jungle, burning villages, and protesting students became symbols of an era. These powerful visuals brought the harsh realities of the conflict into living rooms around the world. The Vietnam War was a turning point in history. It changed the way wars were fought and reported, and it had a profound impact on international relations. It challenged America's role as a global superpower. The war exposed the limits of military might and led to a re-evaluation of U.S. foreign policy. It ignited a wave of protests and social change. The anti-war movement gained momentum, leading to significant shifts in public opinion and policy. The war's legacy is complex and painful. It left deep wounds that are still healing. It serves as a reminder of the human cost of conflict and the importance of understanding different perspectives. The Vietnam War teaches us the value of peace and the need for dialogue in resolving disputes. To understand the Vietnam War, we must turn back the clock. After World War II, Vietnam, a French colony, sought independence. This led to the First Indochina War. The Viet Minh, led by Ho Chi Minh, fought against French forces. The Viet Minh's victory at Dien Bien Phu in 1954 marked a turning point. The Geneva Accords divided Vietnam into North and South, with elections planned for 1956. However, the elections never happened. The Cold War cast a long shadow over Vietnam. The Communist North, supported by the Soviet Union and China, faced the US-backed South. This set the stage for a larger conflict. The division of Vietnam deepened existing tensions. The Communist North under Ho Chi Minh aimed to reunify the country. The South, led by Ngo Dinh Diem, sought to establish a separate state. The United States, fearing the spread of communism in Southeast Asia, increased its support for South Vietnam. This included military aid, advisors, and eventually combat troops. The domino theory, a prevailing idea at the time, argued that the fall of one country to communism would lead to the fall of others in the region. This fear fueled U.S. involvement. The situation in Vietnam became increasingly polarized. What began as a local conflict escalated into a proxy war between superpowers. The Vietnam War was a brutal experience for soldiers on both sides. American soldiers, often young and unprepared for the jungle terrain, faced a determined enemy. The Viet Cong, masters of guerrilla warfare, used the jungle to their advantage. The Viet Cong relied on hit-and-run tactics, ambushes, and booby traps. They blended in with the civilian population, making it difficult to distinguish friend from foe. American soldiers faced an elusive enemy and a hostile environment. The war took a toll on the morale of American soldiers. The constant threat of attack, the unfamiliar terrain, and the growing unpopularity of the war back home created a sense of disillusionment. The turning tides. The Tet Offensive. The Tet Offensive of 1968 marked a significant turning point in the Vietnam War. This massive military campaign was launched by the North Vietnamese Army and the Viet Cong during the Vietnamese New Year, known as Tet. It was a time when both sides had agreed to a temporary ceasefire, making the attack even more unexpected and shocking. It was a coordinated surprise attack by the North Vietnamese Army and Viet Cong on cities and military installations throughout South Vietnam. Major cities like Saigon, Hue, and Da Nang were targeted, leading to intense and brutal fighting. The scale and ferocity of the attacks caught the South Vietnamese and American forces off guard. While the offensive was ultimately a military defeat for the Communists, it had a profound psychological impact on both sides. The sheer audacity and scale of the attacks demonstrated that the North Vietnamese were far from being defeated, as many had believed. It shattered the illusion that the United States was winning the war and eroded public support in America. The American public, who had been assured of imminent victory, were now faced with the harsh reality of a protracted and costly conflict. The Tet Offensive exposed the resilience and determination of the North Vietnamese forces. Despite suffering heavy casualties, they proved their capability to launch large-scale operations and sustain prolonged combat. It revealed the limitations of American military might against a determined enemy. The U.S. military, despite its superior technology and firepower, struggled to achieve a decisive victory against the guerrilla tactics and unwavering resolve of the North Vietnamese. The Tet Offensive had a significant impact on American public opinion. Media coverage of the offensive, including graphic images and reports of the fierce battles, brought the brutal realities of the war into American living rooms. It fueled anti-war sentiment and led to growing calls for peace. The American public, increasingly disillusioned with the war, began to demand an end to the conflict and a return of their troops. The war, once widely supported, became increasingly divisive. The Tet Offensive marked a pivotal moment in the Vietnam War, altering the course of the conflict and shaping the future of American foreign policy. The fall of Saigon, a nation divided. The Paris Peace Accords of 1973 officially ended America's involvement in the Vietnam War. However, the fighting continued between North and South Vietnam. In 1975, North Vietnamese forces launched a final offensive, capturing Saigon, the South Vietnamese capital. The fall of Saigon marked the end of the war and the reunification of Vietnam under communist rule. The war left Vietnam devastated. Millions were dead and the country was in ruins. The war's legacy continued to cast a long shadow over Vietnam. The fall of Saigon had a profound impact on the United States. It led to a reassessment of American foreign policy and a reluctance to engage in prolonged military interventions abroad. Scars of War, the enduring legacy. The Vietnam War's legacy is complex and enduring. For Vietnam, the war left physical and emotional scars. The country faced the daunting task of rebuilding its infrastructure and healing its divisions. The war's impact on the United States was equally profound. It led to a loss of innocence, a questioning of authority, and a deep division within American society. The Vietnam War also had long-term consequences for Southeast Asia. The conflict contributed to instability in the region and led to the rise of the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. Remembering Vietnam, a call for understanding. The Vietnam War serves as a powerful reminder of the human cost of conflict. It was a war that left deep scars on both the soldiers who fought and the civilians who were caught in the crossfire. The images of battlefields, the stories of bravery and loss, and the memories of those who lived through it all continue to resonate with us today. It highlights the importance of understanding different cultures, perspectives, and the complexities of war. The interactions between American soldiers and Vietnamese locals, the peace talks, and the negotiations all underscore the need for empathy and mutual respect. These moments remind us that even in times of conflict, there is a shared humanity that binds us together. Remembering the Vietnam War is not about glorifying war or taking sides. It is about acknowledging the pain and suffering that war brings, and recognizing the courage and resilience of those who endured it. The anti-war protests, the reflections of soldiers, and the stories of those who opposed the war all contribute to a more nuanced understanding of this complex period in history. It is about learning from the past, honoring the sacrifices of those who served, and striving for a more peaceful future. The homecomings of veterans, the memorial services, and the ongoing efforts to support those affected by the war are all part of this process. By remembering and honoring these experiences, we can work towards a future where such conflicts are less likely to occur. By studying history, we gain a deeper appreciation for the human experience. Educational programs, historical analyses, and discussions about the Vietnam War help us to understand the broader context and the individual stories that make up this chapter of history. They provide us with the tools to learn from the past and to apply those lessons to the present and future. We learn from the mistakes of the past and become better equipped to navigate the challenges of the present. The memorials and museums dedicated to the Vietnam War serve as reminders of the consequences of conflict and the importance of striving for peace. They encourage us to reflect on our actions and to consider the impact of our decisions on future generations. The Vietnam War, with all its complexities and tragedies, offers valuable lessons for humanity, lessons about empathy, understanding, and the pursuit of peace. The peace talks, the reconciliation efforts, and the ongoing dialogue about the war all highlight the importance of these values. By embracing these lessons, we can work towards a more just and peaceful world for all. Until next time, keep your head down and stay curious. Nomad, out.